The jewelry box made a soft click as Alma slammed it shut, her fingers trembling slightly against the polished mahogany surface. She hadn't heard me come through the front door, hadn't expected me home from my client meeting for another hour. The morning light streaming through our kitchen window caught the guilty flush spreading across her cheeks. "It's just a gift from my ex," she said, forcing that bright smile she used when pitching campaigns to difficult clients. "Don't worry about it, Corbin." I set my laptop bag down slowly, studying her face. After 8 years of marriage, I knew every tell she had. The way her left eyebrow twitched when she stretched the truth. How she touched her wedding ring when she was nervous. Right now, she was doing both. "Can I see it?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Oh, it's nothing special. Just some old trinket Julian sent for my birthday. You know how he is." Julian Rask, her college boyfriend who'd been sniffing around again since his promotion to regional manager at some consulting firm. The same Julian who'd been liking every single one of her social media posts lately, leaving comments that walked the line between friendly and inappropriate. I reached for the box. "I'd still like to see what he considers appropriate to send a married woman." Alma's hand shot out, covering mine. "Corbin, please. It's really not important." That's when I knew she was lying. If it truly wasn't important, she would have shown me without hesitation. She might have even laughed about it, made some joke about Julian's poor taste or questionable timing. Instead, she was protecting it. I gently moved her hand aside and opened the box. Inside lay a delicate gold necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. Engraved on the front were the initials AR, Alma Rask. Not Alma Findler, the name she'd carried for nearly a decade. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the distant sound of traffic outside, the rapid rhythm of Alma's breathing. "Julian's planning ahead, isn't he?" I said finally, closing the box with deliberate care. "Corbin, it's not what you think." "I understand." I handed the box back to her, watching relief flood her features. She thought I was backing down, that I was going to be the same pushover husband who'd overlooked her late nights at the office, her sudden interest in weekend conferences, her new habit of keeping her phone face down during dinner. She was wrong. That evening, I sat in my home office while Alma took one of her increasingly frequent bubble baths. The door was locked, and I had her laptop open beside my own. My profession as an IT security consultant had its advantages. I knew exactly how to recover deleted files, access cloud backups, and trace digital footprints. What I found made my stomach twist into knots. Months of messages between Alma and Julian, photos I'd never seen, hotel receipts charged to a credit card I didn't know existed. But most damaging of all was a banking app on her phone that showed regular transfers from our joint account to a private savings account in her name only. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The necklace wasn't just a gift, it was a promise. I was documenting everything when I heard the doorbell ring. Alma called from upstairs that she'd get it, but I was already walking toward the front door. Through the peephole, I saw a tall woman with sharp features and ice blue eyes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. "I'm looking for Alma Findler. I'm Vanna Heslor, Julian's wife." My hand froze on the doorknob. Julian's wife. "Here. Now." I opened the door slowly. Vanna Heslor stood on my porch like an avenging angel in a charcoal business suit. She was taller than I'd expected, with the kind of presence that commanded attention in boardrooms and courtrooms. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she carried a leather portfolio that looked expensive and official. "Your wife has something that belongs to me," she said without preamble. "I'm not sure what you mean." Vanna opened her portfolio and pulled out a stack of printed screenshots. "Messages between your wife and my husband, hotel receipts, bank transfers, and this." She handed me a photograph of the necklace I'd seen that morning. Julian charged it to our joint credit card. The receipt shows he had it engraved with her future initials. I stared at the evidence in my hands. "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. I hired a private investigator when Julian started working late every Tuesday and Thursday. Funny thing about cheaters, they're creatures of habit. "What do you want from me?" Vanna's smile was sharp as a blade. "I'm not here for sympathy, Mr. Findler. I'm here because I want payback, precise, calculated, and complete. And I think you might be interested in helping me achieve that goal." I looked back toward the stairs, where I could hear Alma moving around in our bedroom, probably getting ready for another late meeting with her marketing team. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Let's talk." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Vanna and I spent the next hour in my office, sharing information like two detectives working a case. She had financial records, hotel surveillance photos, and a timeline that stretched back 4 months. I had digital evidence, recovered messages, and access to accounts Alma thought she'd hidden. "Your husband's not very careful with his digital security," I told Vanna, showing her the cloud backup I'd accessed. "He saves everything to automatic sync, including photos he probably thought he deleted." Julian always was arrogant about technology. He thinks being able to use Excel makes him a computer expert. Vanna's voice carried the kind of contempt that only comes from years of accumulated resentment. "What's your plan?" "I want them to face consequences for their choices. Real consequences. Not just a messy argument and a temporary separation." "Good, because I've already started moving assets. Julian doesn't know it yet, but I've been liquidating our joint investments and transferring everything to accounts he can't access. I want him to feel what it's like to lose everything he thought was secure." I respected her thoroughness. "What about your marriage?" "What marriage? Julian checked out emotionally 2 years ago. This affair is just the excuse I needed to stop pretending we had something worth saving." Over the next 3 days, I moved quickly and quietly. My brother Darren worked in financial planning, and he helped me set up a trust that would protect our assets while giving me complete control over access. Every dollar in our joint accounts, every investment, every shared asset went into the trust with Darren as the named trustee. I also had Alma's belongings professionally packed and scheduled for delivery to her office. Not everything, just enough to make a point. Her designer clothes, her collection of marketing awards, her expensive skincare products, things that mattered to her. Meanwhile, Vanna was conducting her own campaign. She'd located Julian's car in the hotel parking garage where he met Alma and had it towed to an impound lot. She sent him a photo with the message, "Nice wheels, hope you enjoyed the ride." But Alma wasn't going to take this quietly. I should have expected her to fight back. The first sign of trouble came when 2 police officers appeared at my door on Thursday evening. Alma had filed a domestic harassment report, claiming I was stalking her and making threatening phone calls. The officers were professional but thorough, asking about my whereabouts, checking for signs of violence or disturbance in the house. "Has your wife seemed upset or frightened recently?" Officer Martinez asked, taking notes. "She's been distant lately, but I assumed it was work stress," I said, maintaining eye contact. "I travel frequently for my job, so we don't see each other as much as we used to." They found no evidence to support Alma's claims because there wasn't any. I'd been careful not to confront her directly, not to make threats or demands. Everything I'd done was legal and documented. After the officers left, I called Darren. "She's escalating. We need to move faster." "The trust is bulletproof," he assured me. "Even if she tries to freeze the assets, she can't touch them. But Corbin, you need to be careful. If she's willing to lie to the police, she might try other things." He was right. The next morning, I received an email from my supervisor asking me to schedule a meeting with HR. Alma had contacted my company, claiming I was using work resources to harass her and her colleagues. She'd provided what she claimed were screenshots of threatening emails sent from my work account. Fortunately, I had something Alma didn't know about: complete access to her digital life. The screenshots she'd sent to my HR department were fabricated, created by modifying legitimate work emails and changing the content. But the metadata told the real story. They'd been edited using software on her laptop, and I had the original files to prove it. I also had something else: the complete backup of her communications with Julian, including their planning sessions for this exact scenario. "She's playing a dangerous game," Vanna said when I called her with updates. "Julian tried something similar with my employer, but I was ready for him. I forwarded his messages to my boss before he could spin his story." "What kind of messages?" "The kind where he and your wife discussed the best way to destroy our reputations and finances while they ran off together. Apparently Julian promised Alma that he'd leave me once he figured out how to hide our assets. That's when I realized we weren't just dealing with an affair. This was a coordinated attack designed to leave both Vanna and me with nothing, while Alma and Julian started their new life together. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated both of us." "I think it's time to go on the offensive," I told Vanna. "I was hoping you'd say that." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that matched my mood perfectly. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the tie Alma had given me for our anniversary, shoes polished to a mirror shine. If I was going to destroy someone's life, I wanted to look professional doing it. Alma left for work early, claiming she had a breakfast meeting with a potential client. I knew better. Julian's calendar showed a 7 a.m. appointment at the Riverside Cafe, the same place they'd been meeting for weeks. At 9:30 a.m., I walked into Alma's marketing agency carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the expression of a man who meant business. The receptionist, a young woman named Kelly who'd always been friendly when I'd visited before, looked nervous when she saw me. "Hi, Mr. Findler. Are you here to see Alma? She's in a meeting right now." "Actually, I'm here to see Nadine Walsh in HR. I have an appointment." Nadine Walsh had been Alma's best friend since college and her biggest enabler in recent months. She'd covered for Alma's absences, approved her expense reports without question, and helped create the fake documentation that Alma had used against me. What Nadine didn't know was that I had copies of every email she'd sent, every expense report she'd falsified, and every lie she'd told on Alma's behalf. "Mr. Findler," Nadine said, gesturing me into her office, "I have to say, I'm concerned about some of the things Alma has told me about your behavior lately." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "I'm concerned about some things too, Nadine, like this expense report you approved last month for Alma's client dinner at the Grandview Hotel. Interesting choice of restaurant, considering the Grandview doesn't have a restaurant. It's a hotel, with room service." Nadine's face went pale as I spread the documents across her desk. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, photos from the hotel's security cameras showing Alma and Julian entering and leaving together. "This is another good one," I continued, pulling out more papers. "Travel expenses for a marketing conference in Portland that was actually canceled 6 months ago. But Alma and Julian had a lovely weekend there anyway, didn't they?" "I don't know what you're trying to prove." "I'm not trying to prove anything, Nadine. I'm showing you documented evidence that you've been helping Alma commit expense fraud, falsify reports, and steal from this company. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before Nadine could answer, Alma appeared in the doorway. She must have seen me come in and cut her meeting short. "Corbin? What are you doing here?" I turned to face my wife. This woman I'd loved and trusted for 8 years and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "I'm returning some gifts, Alma, starting with the truth." I handed her a copy of everything I'd just shown Nadine. Your expense fraud, your fake harassment claims, your secret bank account, and your very detailed plans to frame me for domestic abuse while you and Julian disappeared with both our money and Vanna's. Alma's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. "You can't prove any of this." "I don't have to prove it. I just have to show it to the right people, like your business partners, who are very interested in how you've been spending company money, or the police, who might want to know about those fake screenshots you created, or Julian's employer, who probably has policies about employees who steal from their spouses." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed her a text message I'd already composed. "One button, Alma. One button, and this all goes to every business contact you have, every client, every person who might ever consider hiring you again." The color drained from her face. "What do you want?" "I want you to resign. Today, I want you to return every dollar you've stolen from our accounts. And I want you to withdraw your false police report and apologize to my employer for wasting their time." "And if I don't?" "Then you can explain to a judge why you committed perjury, fraud, and theft. Your choice." Alma looked to Nadine for support, but Nadine was staring at the evidence spread across her desk with the expression of someone watching her career evaporate. "Security!" Alma shouted suddenly. "I need security! My husband is threatening me!" 2 security guards appeared within minutes, but by then I was already packing up my briefcase. I handed one of them my business card. "Gentlemen, I'm Corbin Findler. I've just presented evidence of financial fraud to HR, and I believe Mrs. Findler is about to be escorted from the building. You might want to confiscate her computer and access cards before she has a chance to delete anything." As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear Alma's voice rising in pitch and desperation behind me, but I didn't look back. Instead, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Julian. "Your turn." Vanna was already waiting outside Julian's office building when he received the message. She'd taken a personal day from her own job to be there when his world collapsed. The call came 20 minutes later. "It's done," Vanna said. "Julian's been suspended pending investigation. His company takes a very dim view of employees who use corporate credit cards for personal affairs, especially when those affairs involve stealing from family members." "How did he take it?" "Like a man who just realized he's lost everything. His job, his wife, his reputation, and his girlfriend, all in the same morning." I allowed myself a small smile as I drove home to my empty house. But this was just the beginning. The next few days passed in a strange calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Alma had moved into a furnished apartment across town, paying rent with what little money she had left in her personal account. Julian was staying in a hotel while he tried to find a lawyer who would take his case on credit, but I knew they wouldn't stay quiet for long. The first sign of their retaliation came through social media. Someone had created fake profiles using my name and photo, posting inflammatory comments on local business pages and community groups. The posts were designed to make me look unstable, aggressive, and potentially dangerous. The second wave was more sophisticated. Anonymous emails went out to my clients, claiming I'd been using their confidential information for personal vendettas. The emails included just enough technical detail to sound credible, but not enough to be verifiable. "They're trying to destroy your professional reputation," Vanna observed when I showed her the messages. "Classic scorched earth tactics. Can you trace where they're coming from?" "I'm already working on it. Julian might think he's clever, but he's using the same IP address as his hotel. Amateur." While Vanna handled the digital forensics, I focused on damage control. I called each of my clients personally, explaining that I was dealing with a malicious campaign by someone trying to damage my business. Most of them were understanding. Cybersecurity professionals deal with this kind of thing regularly. But Alma and Julian weren't finished. Thursday evening, I was having dinner at Murphy's Pub, a local place where I'd been going for years, when Julian walked in. He looked like he'd been living in his car, wrinkled clothes, unshaven face, the desperate air of a man with nothing left to lose. He spotted me immediately and walked over to my table. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" he said, loud enough for half the bar to hear. I looked up from my burger. "Julian, you look terrible. How's unemployment treating you?" "You destroyed my life. I documented your choices. There's a difference." Julian's hands clenched into fists. "I loved her. We were happy together. You were using her to steal from your wife and me. That's not love, Julian. That's fraud with extra steps. You don't understand what Alma and I have." "Had," I corrected. "Past tense. Because right now, Alma is probably realizing that an unemployed man with no assets and a reputation for theft isn't quite the catch she thought he was." The entire bar had gone quiet, everyone watching our conversation. Murphy's was the kind of place where gossip spread faster than wildfire, and I was counting on that. "You want to know what your precious Alma really thought about you?" I continued, pulling out my phone. "Because I have her messages right here. The ones where she called you a useful stepping stone and too stupid to see the bigger picture." Julian lunged across the table, but I was ready for him. I stood up quickly, letting him grab nothing but air and fall forward into my empty chair. "Careful there, Julian. Assault charges would really complete your week, don't you think?" The bartender, a guy named Tommy who'd known me for years, stepped over. "Everything okay here, Corbin?" "Just having a conversation with an old friend," I said, dropping a 20 on the table. Julian was just leaving. As I walked toward the door, I heard Julian shouting behind me about lawyers and lawsuits and getting everything back. But his voice had the hollow ring of a man making threats he couldn't keep. Outside, I found Julian's car parked crooked across 2 spaces. Someone had already keyed "cheater" into the paint on the driver's side door. Small towns had their own ways of handling justice. I was examining the damage when Vanna called. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Alma and Julian are meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, a good one. They're planning to claim you and I conspired to frame them." "With what evidence?" "They don't need evidence. They just need to create enough doubt to make their problems go away. If they can prove we worked together to gather information illegally, everything we found could be thrown out." I thought about this as I drove home. Alma was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She'd realized that attacking me directly wasn't working, so now she was going to attack the process. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "We get there first. Tomorrow morning, same lawyer's office. We present our evidence before they have a chance to spin their story." "Will that work?" "It will, if we can prove they're still conspiring together. Do you think they're stupid enough to meet in person to plan their legal strategy?" I thought about Julian's performance at Murphy's, about Alma's panicked reaction when I'd confronted her at the office. "Oh, they're definitely that stupid." "Good, because I have an idea." The Riverside Hotel was the kind of place that attracted business travelers and people having affairs. Anonymous, clean, and equipped with security cameras that most guests forgot about. Vanna had confirmed that Alma and Julian were meeting there Friday morning to coordinate their stories before seeing the lawyer. What they didn't know was that Vanna had called ahead and arranged for us to review the security footage. "Privilege of being a regular guest," she explained as we sat in the hotel manager's office at 8 a.m. "I've been staying here during my separation proceedings. Management is very accommodating when you're paying for a suite by the month." On the monitor, we watched Alma and Julian enter the hotel restaurant at 7:30. They chose a corner table, probably thinking it would give them privacy. Instead, it put them directly in view of 2 different cameras. "Can you enhance the audio?" I asked the manager. "Not from here. but I can get you copies of the footage. What you do with them after that is your business. By 9 a.m., we were sitting in the law office of Patricia Hendricks, one of the city's most respected family attorneys. I'd called ahead and explained that I needed representation in a complex case involving fraud and false accusations. My clients will be here any minute, I told Ms. Hendricks as I spread our evidence across her conference table. I want you to see everything before they try to convince you that my wife and I are the victims here. Ms. Hendricks was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed our documentation with the thoroughness of someone who'd seen every scam and sob story in the book. This is quite comprehensive, she said finally. Financial records, digital communications, photographic evidence. How did you obtain all of this? Everything from my wife's devices and accounts was obtained legally. I'm listed as an authorized user on all our joint accounts and services. Ms. Heslor's evidence regarding her husband was gathered by a licensed private investigator. And you're claiming that Mrs. Findler and Mr. Rask conspired to defraud both of you. I'm not claiming it. I'm documenting it. At exactly 10 a.m., Alma and Julian arrived. They looked like they'd spent the morning getting their stories straight. Alma in a conservative business suit, Julian in his best attempt at looking respectable. Ms. Hendricks, Alma began, thank you for seeing us. I'm afraid my husband and his associate have been conducting a campaign of harassment and intimidation against Mr. Rask and myself. That's interesting, Ms. Hendricks replied, because I've just spent an hour reviewing evidence that suggests the opposite. She gestured to the conference table, where our documentation was still spread out. Alma's face went white when she saw the hotel security photos. This morning's footage is particularly compelling, Vanna added, pulling out her laptop. Would you like to see what you and Julian discussed over breakfast? The part where you planned to claim I hacked Julian's accounts was especially creative. Julian started to speak, but Ms. Hendricks held up her hand. Before anyone says anything else, I need to make something clear. Based on what I've seen this morning, I cannot and will not represent either Mr. Rask or Mrs. Findler in any action against Mr. Findler or Ms. Heslor. In fact, I'd strongly recommend that you both seek legal counsel regarding the criminal charges you may be facing. Criminal charges? Alma's voice cracked. Fraud, perjury, theft, conspiracy. The evidence here suggests a pattern of illegal behavior that goes far beyond a simple marital dispute. I stood up and began packing our materials back into my briefcase. Ms. Hendricks, thank you for your time. I think we have everything we need. As we walked toward the door, Alma grabbed my arm. Corbin, please, we can work this out. We don't have to destroy each other. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. You're right, Alma. We don't have to destroy each other. But you already tried to destroy me. Now I'm just returning the favor. Julian stepped forward. You can't prove we did anything wrong. I don't have to prove it, Julian. I just have to show it to the right people, like your former employer's fraud investigation team, or the district attorney's office, or every business contact either of you has ever had. I pulled out my phone and showed them a prepared email with attachments. One button, and this goes to everyone. Every client, every colleague, every person who might ever consider trusting either of you again. What do you want? Alma whispered. I want you to disappear. Both of you. Find new careers in a different city, preferably different states. Stop trying to blame other people for your choices. And never, ever contact me or Vanna again. And if we don't, I pressed the send button. Too late for negotiations. The emails went out at 11:47 a.m. on a Friday, which meant they hit inboxes just as people were checking messages before lunch. By 2 p.m., my phone was ringing with calls from mutual friends, former colleagues, and people I hadn't spoken to in years. Is this real? Asked Mike Peterson, a guy I'd known since college who worked in marketing. The stuff about Alma and this Julian guy? Every word of it. Every document is verified and dated. Jesus, Corbin, I'm sorry. I had no idea she was capable of something like this. Neither had I, until I'd seen the evidence. But that was the thing about betrayal. It was always a surprise to the person being betrayed. Vanna called me that evening with updates. Julian's former employer has opened a formal investigation. Apparently this isn't the first time he's been accused of misusing company resources. What about Alma? Her business partners are cutting ties. They can't afford to be associated with someone who steals from clients and commits expense fraud. She'll be lucky to get a job managing a fast food restaurant after this. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt empty, like I'd won a game I'd never wanted to play. Do you think we went too far? I asked. Do you think they would have stopped if we hadn't? Vanna replied. They were planning to frame us for crimes we didn't commit while they ran off with money they stole. They made their choices, Corbin. We just made sure there were consequences. Over the weekend, I received 2 more pieces of news. First, Alma had withdrawn her false police report and sent a written apology to my employer. Second, Julian had been arrested on outstanding warrants related to unpaid debts. Apparently, his financial problems had started long before he'd met Alma. But the most interesting development came Monday morning, when I found Alma waiting by my car in the parking garage of my office building. She looked different, smaller somehow, like the confidence and arrogance had been drained out of her. Her designer clothes had been replaced with discount store basics, and her perfect makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. 5 minutes, she said. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain. I checked my watch. You have 3. I never meant for it to go this far. Julian promised me things would be different, that we could start over somewhere new. He said he had money saved, that we could disappear and build something better. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him. Our marriage was stagnant, Corbin. We were like roommates, not husband and wife. When Julian came back into my life, he made me feel alive again. So you decided to steal from me to fund your new life with him. It wasn't supposed to be stealing. I was going to pay it back once we got settled. Julian said his divorce would be quick, that Vanna wouldn't fight him because she wanted out too. I almost laughed. Alma, Julian was lying to you about everything. He didn't have money saved. He was in debt up to his eyeballs. Vanna didn't want out. She was planning to leave him anyway, but she wanted to do it on her terms. And he wasn't going to divorce her. He was going to keep both of you stringing along as long as possible. I know that now. What do you want from me? I want to know if there's any way to fix this, any way to undo what we've done. I looked at this woman I'd loved for 8 years, this person I'd planned to grow old with, and felt nothing but pity. You can't undo choices, Alma. You can only live with the consequences. You chose to betray our marriage. You chose to steal from our accounts. You chose to try to frame me for harassment when I found out. Every step of this was a choice you made. I know, but my time is up. I opened my car door. Goodbye, Alma. As I drove away, I saw her in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking garage, probably realizing that her old life was gone and her new life had never existed. That afternoon, Vanna called with the final update. Julian's been charged with fraud and theft. His lawyer is trying to work out a plea deal, but it looks like he's going to serve time. Alma's been blacklisted from every marketing firm in the city. What about you? What's next? I'm moving to Seattle. Fresh start, new job, new life. What about you? I thought about it. My marriage was over, my trust in people was shattered, and my home felt like a museum of broken promises. But I was free. Free from lies, free from manipulation, free from someone who'd seen me as an obstacle to overcome rather than a partner to cherish. I think I'll stay here, I said finally. This is my city too. Why should I be the one to leave? Good for you. Don't let them win by running away. After I hung up, I sat in my office looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Alma was probably packing what remained of her belongings. Julian was sitting in a cell, finally facing the consequences of his choices. And I was alone, but I was also free. The gift Julian had given Alma, that necklace with the wrong initials, had been returned to sender. But some gifts, once opened, change everything. The gift of truth, the gift of clarity, the gift of knowing exactly who someone really is when they think nobody is watching. Those were gifts you couldn't return, even if you wanted to. And sometimes they were the most valuable gifts of all.